Hi, my name is Jarkko Moilanen. I'm the Chief Development Officer at Platform of Trust. And as you can notice, we are still in the middle of productizing the service because earlier it was said that it's integration as a service or something else. And now we started to use more like a connector engine, basically the same stuff, but new name. New wrapping, and this isn't the final name of the service, but it will possibly change during the March. Okay, before we go into the engine's logic and what's expected from any of the participating integration partners, the customer situation, that why we are actually even igniting this kind of partner program is that our customers, they have data, but it's in some kind of databases, accessed by some kind of system, more or less in our context. Now we're talking about Schneider, Siemens, eGate, Leanheat, this kind of systems that actually manage property information and sensory information in in buildings. And they actually want to use the data in harmonized model. And now they have different kind of schemas and that they need to do point-to-point integrations a lot. And that takes a lot of time and it costs a lot. And on top of that, they could actually monetize the data they have and they actually own, but they don't have any kind of means to do it. So they don't want to do point-to-point integrations, and regardless of the source system, is it Schneider or Siemens or something else, then for example, all CO2 values should come out as by same data schema regardless of the source. So they want to harmonize the data and use it efficiently in application layer, which is built on top of the platform of trust by different partners and different companies. And that's another story. But now we're focusing on how to get the data from the source systems to the platform so that it can be consumed easily in harmonized format. How to do that? This is really simplified picture of what happens for the data and what kind of components and services are used. So again, databases, source data systems, and they have APIs. And then in the next step, there is a connector component which actually discusses with the source system API, and then based on the standard schemas and ontologies, translates the data payload to the standardized format, and then passes it to the broker API, which actually passes it to the application. Of course, the application makes the request first, and then all this happens. But in this connector engine program, we are focusing on the connector components and the standard schemas and ontologies of the platform of trust. We don't mess around with the broker API. You need to use it, but we don't develop it as part of the program. We build connectors and extend the standard ontology needed. So basically, our customers have three options. They can build the connectors and ontologies themselves. Fine. If they want to do it, that's possible as well. Some of the customers have done it, and there's no problem for us. If you want to do it, fine. Then the other option in the middle, second one, is that let us do it as part of the SAFe development. We have the SAFe framework in use in steady development. And it might be a bit slowish for the customer's needs, and the priority of the building the connector might be low in our priorities. So it's not given that it actually happens, for example, in the next increment, and the customer might need it faster. So we needed to build another option, And that's why we have the connector engine or connector as a service. Sorry for the double name again for the concept, but it should say actually connector engine by the integration from us fast. And now we're focusing only on this option, the last third option, as we are buying the integration. Here's an overview of what actually is happening in the connector engine. We will discuss most parts of it in the presentation, but and there's information that all those purple boxes are platform of trust responsibilities. Green is joined box, platform of trust and the integration partner, and the light bluish are partner boxes only. So that's how you know where to actually you should be focusing and what is handled by the platform of trust. But in the beginning, customer can find the connector engine from our website or given email, and then goes to a given address in web and answers some questions. And with the questions, we identify what kind of integration package actually would fulfill the needs of the customer. And based on the questions, automatically we create a work package, which is a card in Trello. Then we evaluate the request jointly with the partners involved in the connector engine program. And based on the evaluation, the integration might not fit into this program, and then it's our problem, platform of trust problem, again, to do something else with it, with the customer need. But if it does fit, it goes to the subcontractors, and one of those actually selects the job and commits to make it actually, to build the connector and possibly the extensions for the ontologies as well. Then they implement it and test it. Then platform of trust actually takes the implementation and test results and ontologies as a package, and then does a review for it and acceptance testing. And when everything is green, actually then we can say that the connector is ready and component hosting is available. And by default, it means that all these connectors that are built in this program are hosted by platform of trust. Customers occasionally might want to host themselves, but by default, we offer them the hosting as well, because this is integration as a service. And typically, all this process should take around a month. But it depends on the package itself, how long it actually takes. But it's around that time frame, regardless of what the package is. And as I said, before we go into all of those boxes, the work package queue is managed in Trello, and this is the MVP implementation of this program. Eventually, this Trello is going to be replaced with more steady, more quote professional unquote environment. But in this point, we're using the Trello to actually manage the whole process. And all the people are added there to the team in Trello after your company has signed the agreement, which we will discuss in a moment. Only the members of the program can see the board, and it contains also instructions in a separate column. It's not visible in the picture, and not all the information, by the way, is not visible in the picture, but the Trello contains more. But since the discussions in Trello are quite cumbersome, at some point we have decided to make a dedicated channel for this connector engine people only in our platform of trust Slack. And again, people are added to the Slack and to the given channel when the agreement is signed. And there we can have more fast-paced discussions. Well, okay, Trello, let's go back a bit. The first step, how do we actually collect the information? This is not your problem, but it's good that you know how it actually happens and what happens with the information that we collect from the customer side. So there's a form which actually poses questions to the customer, and it's kind of requirement form. It's asking I think it was 9 questions, and based on those answers, it actually summarizes all that information to one of the cards in the Trello. And it goes always to the backlog, which is managed by Platform of Trust. Basically, that summary and the details below the summary in the Trello card should contain all needed information for you to evaluate could you actually commit to it or not. And if you cannot, then you need to make a question in the Trello card, and we will answer it or get the information and then answer your questions. And after some rounds, it will be the situation that some of the integration partners can actually commit to this one. And then the fastest one actually selects it and then commits and starts to implement it. I think we will learn while doing this that how the form should be adjusted. Should we actually add some more questions there to dig out all the necessary information? But based on initial discussions, the information should be sufficient. Okay, then what are the possible packages that are going to be offered for you, and all the information coming from the customer requirements form? That Trello card that is constructed from this information must fit in one of the 6 packages. In this slide, you have 3 of those. So the first options that actually might come in front of you. And we decide in the Platform of Trust initially what kind of package the requirement actually would fit in. But this is something that we can negotiate, for example, in the Trello card. But in the first option, the situation is that Platform of Trust does not have any kind of integration solution to the given data source system. For example, some kind of Siemens system or eGate or whatever that system actually is defined in the customer requirements. So no one has built any kind of integration solution at all. And in that option, the smallest package is that it actually has some kind of standard API requirement, as it has to have a REST SOAP or WebSocket API. And you can use the existing ontologies and data product payload schemas defined in the Platform of Trust ontology. Basically, the expected data products have been defined already in schema level, and you will actually test it in the sandbox, and you are given the credentials easily to the source system, and you have 2 weeks time to commit this integration. So you don't need to worry about anything about the ontologies. Those are ready made. All you need to do is build the connector component and make it so that it actually uses the ontology needed for the data products that have been defined in the customer requirements. We have a Python language skeleton for the connector component, but you can select your preferred programming language and framework as long as it's not too exotic. This is rather vague, but you should know that it's something that is somewhat widely used technology. Use that if you don't want to use Python, for example. Okay, that's the small package, and we pay you 3,000. That's it. The second option, 4,500, is a medium-sized integration package. Again, we don't have the integration to the source system at all. But then you need to build the connector component, plus you need to make maximum of 3 new data product ontologies in parallel with the integration. So you need to be able to actually use ontology development tools and suggest to us that this kind of product schema would actually fulfill the customer needs and could be used with this kind of integration. And again, we review it and then accept it as part of the delivery. The difference is that in the first one, you don't need to worry about creating new ontologies, but in the second one, in the medium package, you need to take that into account. But it's, again, maximum of 3 new data products. And you have 4 weeks to deliver. The last option, 6,000 paid to you, is a large one, which is, as you can see, it's something that whenever something doesn't actually seem to fit into small or medium, but it's still, it seems like it could actually be part of the connector engine program. So this probably requires some discussions in Slack and in Trello if such cases actually occur. But it will be scoped down so that the price seems adequate and reasonable also for the integration partners as well. And the delivery schedule is negotiated. It's not fixed like in the medium and small package. So these are the first options that might come into your hand, and these are the integration packages. And this is, sorry for the rather complex or too much information slide, but some of the customer cases doesn't fit into these packages, which we have been talking about the integration packages that are mostly like containing integration to some system which actually is capable of creating data products from humidity, CO2, temperature, lights, occupancy, and noise. But sometimes that's not enough. So some of the customers actually want to extend the data product capabilities of these integrations. And now we're talking about some kind of other items on the top of the slide, which is the question marks and some other measurements that they actually want to get. In these cases, when the basic measurements is not enough, we are extending the integration, and thus we are talking about extension packages. And these are the 3 other options that might come in front of you. So again, the pricing is the same and 3 options again. And in the small package, 3,000, you need to create maximum 3 new data product ontologies and test it with an existing connector component, which might be developed by you or someone else. Because by default, all these connector components are open source. And in the agreement, we state that we, Platform of Trust, own the IPR. So we own it and we decide what to do with the connector components, and we will open source them and put them available in GitHub. But again, so you don't need to build from the scratch any of the connectors, but you need to extend the capabilities of given connector to actually support additional 3 data products. And you have 2 weeks time in the small package. In the medium extension package, you will have 4 to 6 new data product ontologies to develop, again, on given connector component built by you or someone else. And you have 4 weeks time to deliver that one. And the large one, again, similar as in the integration packages, it's something that needs to be discussed in Trello and slash in the Slack, for example, with the Platform of Trust staff, and we will scope the case so that it makes sense for both of us, and delivery schedule is negotiated. It's not fixed. These are the packages that actually will come in front of you in Trello cards. Nothing else. The agreement was mentioned a couple of times. Our desire is to make one agreement with each of the integration partners. That agreement contains the traditional conditions for the agreement, and in the attachment, one of the attachment, Appendix 1, is gonna contain all the same information in written format, all the packages we discussed just minutes ago. So all those 6 options are written open in Appendix 1 in the attachment. That agreement is signed once when the integration partner enters the integration ecosystem, mini ecosystem that we are now building. And after that, you are invited to the Trello, you are invited to the Slack, and then you can actually go to the Trello and pick work package from the integration queue, normally labeled ready. And there's the package label as well, what's the size of the package. And it's important to understand that we don't push anything to you. You need to be the active participant here. So you need to be checking what's available and what you can actually do. We offer you the possibilities, but you actually pull the jobs in. Billing and schedule for the billing, we would like to do every quarter, but it's possible that we go to do monthly basis as well. This is something that I need feedback from you as the partners as well. But one agreement, and when we do this, we don't need to sign any agreements on each of the work packages again. We do it once, and then we do all the work packages inside this one agreement only. It makes our lives a lot easier, and it also makes your life a lot easier. About the technology, I mentioned that at this point we don't care too much about the technology that you're going to use in the connector components. It can be Java, Node, Ruby on Rails, C#, something else, as long as it's something not invented in your own bike set by yourself. Use the common architectures and frameworks to build it. And you should be building against our version 1 architecture, which is currently the only architecture that's visible publicly, and the documentations for it are available in docs.offtrust.net, and the developer portal is in developer.offtrust.net. We are now building the version 2 architecture as well, but you should not worry about that yet. That's for the connector part. The ontology part, which is basically when you're extending the product capabilities of these integrations, we use the Protege as a tool, and you can get it as well from the given address. And we always use the ontologies in JSON LD format. The Protege can actually export it in JSON LD format directly. And you will be given a helping hand from the ontology team on how to extend the standard ontology. And the data product, which is a fundamental element of the whole platform of trust, is now described in some details in the given address, dataproduct.offtrust.net, but it's not complete yet. It will contain more and more information in the future. But the most important thing is to understand that the most likely best tool to use in extending the ontology is the Protege. But you can use something else as well. About the testing, which is required to be in the delivery and in the process, idea is that you can always test in your own environments as well, but we are now setting up a test kit for you to use so that you don't need to build any kind of testing environments or set up any kind of anything else. But we will provide a ready-made testing environment in Azure environment where the platform of trust mostly exists, and it will contain some data products, and you will probably create more in there freely. Sorry. It contains also the production-alike APIs, which you will probably need a product API, broker API to do the testings as well. It will contain also the API documentation for the APIs, and it also will contain example tests for one real translator. And the team is now finalizing that ready-made test set for you to use. And if I'm not wrong, they are actually using the robot framework now, but I might be mistaken. You will all have your own repository in the Azure where you can keep your codes, but you will use the shared pipelines to run the tests. And all this is finalized during this month. But again, if you have a different kind of testing in mind, it might be a good idea to chat with us about that as well. And I'm sure that some of you would actually benefit from this ready-made test kit for the development. About the delivery, it's related to the testing as well. For the connectors, we expect the source code to be in GitHub. You can put it in your own repositories, and we can clone it under our organization in GitHub later. You should include the tests used, test cases, and the files needed to run the tests, and the test report. What to test is actually something that you should look at the previously mentioned test kit, which contains the example tests, for example, for translator. We expect you to fix bugs found in 3 months from the delivery date. So I'm confident that you will actually make a good quality code, but this is something that, based on experience, we have to require from anyone delivering anything to us. And the compensation for the job will be paid after we review the code and the connector, and that's about it. On the ontology side, when you're expanding the connector's data product capabilities and extending the standard ontology on platform of trust, you should deliver that to us, and it can be done as simply as making a pull request to our GitHub repository, which contains the ontology at the moment. And it will be reviewed and approved by the tools and data products team. Basically, the ontology team is there. Obviously, all this information is still quite superficial. It's like just only the surface. So we are ready to actually give you 3 webinars in March about topics about the overview and the connector. So data product, connector logic and context, the limitations, opportunities. So a lot of technical architecture related information. Then about the ontology, how it works, what's the model and boundaries, and how to extend it practically with the given tools, and what is the process. And the third one about the development and testing, about our environments and the required testing environment, and all the information needed to actually set it up and start doing your own testing in our given environment. And here's the basically some of the same information. So the steps forward now is that in March we have the briefings as webinars. We will be using again the Teams. Invitations will be sent all of you, and you will actually select if you actually want to participate or not. The dates for the webinars have been fixed already. The time is always the same. It's 1 p.m. But the dates are for the overview and the connector is March 25th. The ontology is 26th, and the development and testing is on 30th March. And 1 p.m. all the time, always the same time. And it might take 15 to 60 minutes to run the webinar through. Likewise, in March, the agreements are signed, but before you can even sign anything, you need to obviously review it. And the appendix, one of the appendix is in my hands still. I need to finalize it and push it to the lawyer so that they can check it as well. And then I will actually send the agreements to all of you for review and decision making. And I expect the wanted participants in the first round to sign the agreements during the March. It might look in the beginning a bit heavy, but again, we are a platform of trust, so we need to have some trust elements quite heavily also in the agreements, and that's why it might look a bit heavy for the purpose. But this connector engine is expected to grow in members quite rapidly when we fill in the work pool in Trello. And once you have signed the agreement, you will be invited to work package pool, which is basically the Trello. And again, in March, we will use the whole process internally in Platform of Trust. Our salespeople and partner directors and everyone else basically having a lot of contact with our customers and prospect customers. They will actually use the requirement form to fill in needed information. So in the beginning, always the customer is Platform of Trust. And we will fine tune the tool and test all the glitches away for it in internal use. And in April 2020, we will launch the service for any of the customers of the Platform of Trust, and then they will actually find the service from platformoftrust.net/services. And there's the link in that page eventually where they can start filling in the form, aka answering the questions, and get their connectors and data product support built for them as a service. So this is all this is it what I had to say. And if you have now questions, I would suggest that you actually type it instead of trying to yell it all the same time. And then I'll do my best to actually answer all your questions immediately. All right, if you have questions, now's the moment. And if you then type it in the discussion in the chat, which should be found in the desktop application on the left side. So at least IT works, plenty of people coming from there say that everything is clear. That's good to hear. And I understand that, again, this is every detail is not exposed yet. And for example, the agreement is fundamentally important for both of us to agree on and all realize on that. But if the basic model is something that you understood well enough, then I'm happy. And this model has been battle tested in small scale with one of the candidates of the connector engine, and they also say that it's pretty good and pretty obvious and clear. How will you send the presentation and the record? You mean this presentation? I can send it to all the participants, this presentation, to all the participants of this kickoff, and the recording we can put it in the YouTube, and put it initially in hidden format and provide the email, the link to it in the email as well. How about the updates for? Yeah, good question. This probably leads into a situation that when one company of this pool actually creates a connector, and the customer wants some kind of changes in it, it's more likely that it's actually extension to the data product capabilities, but sometimes it might be some kind of functional requirement as well. And I need to be honest, I haven't thought about it yet too thoroughly. So this is something we can discuss and should discuss jointly, for example, in a separate session, because I'm open for ideas and we're open for ideas. We want this to be jointly built mini ecosystem instead of us telling you how to do everything. Can you share more about the acceptance criteria? Those are going to be clarified in the agreement and also on the separate webinar, which is the development and testing. And but basically it's like a quite lightweight acceptance criteria. For example, if you build a connector and it should support CO2 level data products, and the basically then you actually need to prove in the tests that actually it can do that. You can call the connector from the broker API and it can pass the requests to the source system and get response from there and transform it in the harmonized format and return that to the broker API, and you're done. But there's going to be more information about the acceptance criteria in written format in the agreement, and also in the webinar you will hear more. And we can add all this information and questions to these answers also in the Trello, because there's a separate section for all this QA kind of question and answer section. I think we have already signed the agreement. Can we get the invitation? Yes, that's possible. I don't know how you have signed it because I haven't seen the final agreement yet. But we can discuss this in a phone meeting after this, for example. Because we have a lot of agreements going on with different kind of companies, and Holda's people might be still confusing this one with another one. Is there any more questions? Or are we done? Because I reserved 1 hour 30 minutes and we have consumed now 40 minutes. Could you tell us more about connectors maintenance and support of deployed applications? Well, basically the deployment is handled by our DevOps, and all those connectors are running in Azure environment, can be containerized and probably will be. And this is how the version 1 architecture works, and that version 2 might be a little different, but that's why we want the source codes and not just some kind of containers. And that's basically not your main concern, but in the webinar where the overview is discussed by Jaro, who's the product owner of the core, he will actually go through how all this in more details actually works. So you will see how the connector is consumed by the applications, which are basically hosted somewhere else. We don't host the applications who actually consume data via the connector components. We maintain the connectors and the core platform, and that's about it. But of course, all the applications that actually consume any of the data coming from platform of trust, they are registered to the platform, but those are deployed somewhere else at this point. If there is time left, can you make a brief introduction about the POT in general, since we have two guys in the meeting who haven't got a proper briefing to POT itself? Well, I would actually love to leave this for Jaro to do, because he can do it a lot better in the webinar itself. And then all the participants interested about that will actually hear about it more. But since there is time, I'm gonna show you one picture. I'm gonna take the sharing away for a moment. Just a minute. I'm digging one picture. Well, I'm not gonna show the whole platform itself, because you will be like a complete mess when you actually look at it, and it's like an elephant. You need to eat one bit by bit, so one leg at a time and one nose at a time. But I think this is more or less pretty much the same that you saw earlier on, but this is a data product focused presentation slide. So we have the identity API, product API, broker API, and we have, I think, 5 other APIs in the platform currently, which are exposed publicly. And then we have internal APIs as well. But basically, the platform currently always contains digital twin of, for example, about the building that is the context for all the data products. So that given building, the floors and the rooms and devices in the building are described in a digital twin, which is in our platform. In some cases, that digital twin is created from IFC model. There's a tool which can be used to import data from IFC to the platform of trust, so that you don't need to do it manually or programmably with the APIs, which you can do. You can use the identity API to create the digital twins and modify those digital twins with the same API, and then all the devices, for example, which measure the CO2 or something else in the building rooms, are connected to the digital twin. They are linked to the digital twin with the identity API. And that basically defines the context and devices for the data products. And then you have the product API, which can be used to create data products, which actually contain the meta information layer, basically standard attributes for commercialization, legal aspects, and payload options. So this is the product layer itself, and then is the payload layer, data product payload layer, which is then relates to the connectors that we discussed here previously, and the data source systems, which are here described as device hub, behind which the device hub is the devices, and the devices are managed by the device hub and not platform of trust, and there always has to be the API that is connected to translator. So data product level defines what is accessed from the connectors and eventually from the device hub and then back. And that is operated with the broker API basically by the application builders. So data consumers most likely need pretty soon only two APIs, product API and broker API. Currently, the product layer is not much used, and thus the developer actually needs to use the identity API for discovery, and based on the results, make the query themselves, construct the query themselves for the connector, and then they can actually access the data in the payload. But later on, this is changed so that the developer using the data doesn't have to worry about or do some kind of searching or discovery with the identity API from the digital twin. It is given in data product level, and then we have multiple data products, for example, coming and related to one of the digital twins, which is a building, for example. And there's a lot of other elements in the platform itself, but it takes probably a couple of hours or half a day to go through all of those, and I'm not the best person to do that. I've been focusing heavily on the data product aspect of the platform for the past 6 months, among other things. But that might have given some people some ideas about what is platform of trust. But as it was said, more thorough overview and details are coming in the webinars, and there's 3 of those, and invitations will be sent to all. And you can decide if you want to continue with the subject or not. But whatever comes to into your mind, you can always write to me any questions or comments, and you should have my email. But if you don't, it's basically in the chat. And please give me feedback, because this is an opportunity for all of you, but it's also fundamentally important for us to make this happen and make it successful, and so that it feels really to all of the participants as a win-win combination. We need your input and your feedback to make it attractive for you, so that it actually makes it beneficial for both of us. All right, since there are no more questions, we can actually then basically wrap this up, unless there's something still troubling you about the connector engine. If not, last call for any of the questions. All right. Basically, this is it, and thank you for your time. And the invitations will come to your email, and the presentation we're given today is also coming to your email as PDF file, and the agreements and the appendixes are gonna come to your email as soon as I get those finalized with the lawyer, ASAP. And thank you for your time. All right.